Okay, so we're here to talk about a student whom I will refer to as Student A. You are her parent, and I just want to give you an idea of how she's doing in math, science, and English language arts. So we're going to start with math. The math assessment that I am using was two different exit tickets. One question was 1 2/3 times 1/5. So I was assessing, whether students knew how to multiply a mixed number by another fraction. The second exit ticket I used was a fraction division problem, 2.5 divided by 4. So I wanted to see students' ability to take a mixed number, see if they can convert it to an improper fraction, see if they knew what to do with the whole number, and carry out all the procedural steps fluently. So student A's response, she got the first question correct, but not the second, so we need to do some more work with division. Her misconception was that she did not convert the mixed number to an improper fraction beforehand. She kept the whole number and multiplied that straight across, and then she took 1.5 and divided it by 4. She did do that correctly, so she knew to take the whole number, convert it to a fraction by putting a 1 in the denominator, and her final answer was 2 1/8. Situated within a whole class context, 15 out of 25 students, so 60%, answered the first question correctly. So she was a part of that 60%. And 14 out of 22 answered the second question correctly. Your student was not alone. The most common misconception in class was either not setting the problem up correctly or not converting the mixed number to an improper fraction correctly, as your student had done. So as for the science assessment, it was an exit ticket where I asked each student to match the pulley system with the type of advantage it provides and then to explain how they knew. Her response, she did do the first part correctly, so she matched up the pulley system with the type of advantages that they provide. However, her explanation was incomplete. She reiterated what she had matched, which was that a single fixed goes with a directional advantage and single mechanical goes with a or single movable goes with a mechanical advantage, but she did not give me any explanation as to how she knew that. But the good news is there were only 4 students out of the whole class who I did give full credit to, who had given what I would have considered a complete and accurate explanation. So there were 6 students that answered incorrectly, the matching part, and then, yeah, as I said before, only 4 of which answered the second part correct. The last assessment I like to talk about is a few figurative language assessments. So we were doing a unit in which we were studying alliteration, hyperbole, idioms, similes, metaphors, and onomatopoeia. So what I'm focusing on specifically for this data representation is an alliteration activity, simile, metaphor, and personification. So just to let you know a little bit about what the activity was. So the alliteration activity asked students to alliterate the first letter of their name. So student A's name began with an A, so she had to create a tongue twister using at least 7 words that also began with an A. And the other assessment was I had read aloud Owl Moon in class, which is a book that uses a lot of figurative language. So we dissected it as a class, and then their homework was to look at 13 different sentences and to determine whether it was a simile, metaphor, or represented personification, and then they had to explain the reasoning. So as for the alliteration activity, she did receive 7 out of 7 points, so she got full credit. And as for the owl language activity, she correctly identified all 3 sentences that I chose to look at as either simile, metaphor, personification, and I felt that her explanations were thorough. For example, the simile one, she said she knew it was a simile because it was comparing 2 things using like or as. And then also we took a figurative language unit test, and she received a score of 21 out of 25, so she did pretty well. As far as whole class patterns went, so 18 out of my 24 students, or 67%, scored a B or better on the alliteration activity. 19 out of 23, or 83%, answered the metaphor question correctly. All of my students answered the simile question correctly, and only 14 out of 23 answered the personification question correctly. So she was one of the students that answered all 3 correctly. As for the unit test, she is a part of the 64% that scored 80% or better, and then we had 24% that got a C or a D, and then 12% that scored lower than a D. So that is the information I have representing your student's progress in class. Overall, I'd say we could use a little bit of work on dividing fractions and working on the procedural fluency. As far as science goes, it's just a matter of, really getting her to explain her thinking. But overall, she's doing pretty well in class.